Hi, I'm Cliff Signer, priest at Church of the Resurrection, Clarksville, and I wanted to walk you through an option for praying the daily office each day. So the daily office is a very ancient way of praying every single day. It gives a pattern of prayer. It's not that this is the only way to pray, but I've noticed in my own life that if I don't have a way to pray, then my prayer life feels kind of chaotic. Which sometimes when life is chaotic, your prayers are chaotic. But I believe that the structure that the daily office can bring to our walk with Christ is a lot like a training program in exercise. So there are a lot of options within the daily office, but again, when you have a whole lot of options, sometimes you end up not being sure which choice is the right choice. So I wanted to give an option that is very straightforward, that is timely and could be completed with a little bit of time each day, about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how meditative your prayer is. And I wanted to just sort of walk you through that now. So this little piece of paper here will give you the option of morning prayer and evening prayer. I'll have these printed and at church, as well as a file that can be downloaded on the website. So I want to talk first about this 2-year cycle of readings in the 60-day Psalter. So if you turn to the back of the prayer book, you'll see the lectionaries. And you'll notice up here that you've got January 1 and you've got January 2. And you've got morning prayer and you've got evening prayer. So if you were to use the entire lectionary and you were to read the Bible through in 1 year, then these would be the readings, first lesson, second lesson, and the Psalter, the Psalms. These would be your readings for 1 day, January 1st, for morning prayer. And then in evening prayer, you'd have Psalms 3 and 4, and you would have Galatians 1 and Luke 2:8 through verse 21. So that would be all of the readings. If you were going to read it through in 2 years, which is what I'm recommending, then you would have January 1. This would be the first year of January. And then the second year, this would be January here. And you see that each page gives us another month. Okay. So one of the things that I like about a 2-year lectionary for the daily office is that it gives you the opportunity to truly meditate on one part of Scripture at a time. So you see, in this way, you'll read Genesis 1 in the morning, and then you'll read a reading from the Gospel of John in the evening. If you were to read this all the way through, then you would read Genesis 1 in the morning, you would read this first chapter of John, or most of the first chapter of the Gospel according to John. Then in the evening, you'd read Galatians chapter 1, and then you'd read a large chunk of Luke, all in the same day. If you're someone that wants to read for understanding, and maybe some people are great at reading a lot of different books at one time, but I like the smaller amount of information, the more I'm likely to be able to absorb it and understand it. Okay. So having introduced you to that, you can see this is the outline. We'll start with an opening sentence. And depending on the season, you've got seasonal options on pages 27 and 28. So for instance, we're still in the Christmas season, so you can use a Christmas opening sentence. This helps tie us to the Christian year. Then you have the invitatory. This little cross next to it shows that this is a traditional place in which the sign of the cross is made. Then you have the option for Psalm 95 or Psalm 100. So the way that I have this broken up, you would say, you would get the opportunity to say both. So you would say the Jubilate on from Sunday through Tuesday, and then on feast days, and the Venite, you would say on Wednesdays through Saturdays, as well as fast days. Then we have the Antiphons, which are on page 14, but also on 29 through 30, we have seasonal antiphons. So for instance, Christmas, Epiphany, Lent, all of those have different antiphons, and so those can be used. Then we have our psalm, and our psalm It begins on page 738, but then you have to find the corresponding month and day for the psalm. And again, we're using the 60-day Psalter. Then you would have the first lesson of the day, which would be the only lesson during morning prayer. After the first lesson, then we would say the Te Deum Laudamus together. That's Sunday through Tuesday and feast days. During Lent, that's replaced with the Benedictus es Domine. And then Wednesdays through Saturdays, then we would say the Benedictus. The Apostles' Creed is normally said, or traditionally is said once a day. So I'm placing it here in morning prayer. Then you have the prayers, which includes the collect of the day, as well as additional collects and a prayer for mission. That's on page 21 through 25. The general thanksgiving, which the prayer book gives us as an optional prayer. We will say that Sundays and feast days. We would say a prayer of St. Chrysostom every day, and then the dismissal and the grace. And then in evening prayer, we have the opening sentence on page 41. We have the confession. So the confession is similar to the Apostles' Creed in that it's traditional that it would be said once a day. I'm placing it here in evening prayer. If we were having Eucharist every single day, then normally confession would be said before Eucharist in the morning. But since we're not having Eucharist every day, I feel like it makes sense to put confession at the end of the day. It gives you an opportunity to reflect on the past day, where you feel like you've struggled, and also where you've done well and where you have an opportunity to rejoice. Then once we've said confession, we move to the invitatory, the Fos Hilaron, which is a song of light. This is a very ancient hymn of the Christian faith, normally said at the lighting of candles. Then we have the psalm, which you can see on January 1st. That would be Psalm 3 and 4 in evening prayer. Then you have the second lesson of the day. So today, the second lesson, January 1st, the second lesson would be John chapter 1, verses 1 through 28. Then we would have the Magnificat on Sundays through Tuesdays and feast days, and the Nunc Dimittis on Wednesdays through Saturdays and fast days. This is the Song of Simeon that we will be talking about this evening, actually. Then you have the prayers on page 47 through 51, which includes the collect of the day and other collects, and then a prayer of St. Chrysostom and the dismissal and the grace. So there are also prayers for midday, also prayers for Compline, but since 1549 it has been traditional for Anglicans to pray morning prayer and evening prayer. So this gives you an option to do that. It takes you through all of Scripture in 2 years. It takes you through the Psalms every 60 days. And this is a wonderful rhythm in order to grow closer to God. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope that this works for you. If you have any questions or if you have any struggles, I would encourage you to reach out to me. I would love to talk to you. I know that getting into a pattern of prayer can be really difficult. And if this doesn't work for you, that's okay. There are lots of options, but it is important that we have a daily pattern of prayer every single day. Have a blessed evening.